Okay, just getting things sorted out. Bear with me a moment. Just setting up a second screen to monitor the live feed so I can see anybody talking about it basically en route. So if I go to the Your Channel page now, I can now see my own stream, which is good. Okay, so we are at Innsbruck in the PMDG 737-600, which came out today, and you can see just how short this aircraft is. And it's a tiny little thing. So we're going to go and set it up to fly down to Sion. We will not be following all of the real world procedures, so we'll be shortcutting quite a lot of the procedures as I usually do on these flights, just down to the basics to get the airplane up and running. So first thing we're going to do inside the aircraft is go and hold on the menu key and go to FS Actions and Ground Services and request ground power. And we just wait for that to connect. So that's connecting the cart up to the front of the aeroplane, which will give us ground power, so then we can get on with the rest of the aeroplane. So if we go and look up overhead while we're waiting for that, we can switch the batteries on at least, and then we can go further up overhead and we can start to align the inertial navigation system. So there we go, waiting for the aligns, and we can then say switch on status. We can come back down to here. Actually, let's have a look at that status. Interesting. Why had that moved away from... Okay, ground power is on. So we're going to switch over to it now, which will stop that noise. Okay, so the alarm we heard there was with depleting the battery basically, which is fine. Okay, ground power's on. We've done the inertial navigation, we've done the status on the navigation. Next thing we do is emergency lights to armed, which is in the middle here, and we close the latch on it, or the hatch I should say. Window heat to on, so we go and turn on the window heaters, and we turn on the probe heaters. I'm using a paper checklist. I will try to remember to put a link to it on the stream after we complete the flight. Control 3 takes us down to, the flight management computer, and we're going to go and prepare our flight plan. So we come back down to the menu page, go to FMC, and it's saying nav data out of date. We can clear that message, enter IRS position. So we can go to position initialization, we can go next page, we can pick up the position from one of the GPS systems previous page and drop it into the IRS position field. The reference airport we are taking off from, if we have a look on the map, is Lowy or Innsbruck, so L-O-W-I, Lima, Oscar, Whiskey, India, and we can put that into reference airport. And then we can go to the route page, and it's already in the scratch pad, so we can put that into origin. And the destination we're going to today is Sion, which is LSGS, Lima, Sierra, Golf, Sierra. So put that in the scratch pad, transfer it over to the destination, and that's done. We're departing Lowy or Innsbruck on runway 26, so we'll go and stick that into the runway field. And now we can set up, well actually we'll do the performance initialization first. So out of the box, if we go and have a quick look in here, although you can't change this in here on the 737, you have to do it through the aircraft, it's got a default loadout which we will leave as it is. So the wings are full of fuel, the fuselage isn't, which is fine. We're just going to be moving the aeroplane around and playing with the aircraft, to be honest. Okay, so we can go and select 0 fuel weight and it will pre-calculate it for us. We can put in a reserve, we'll just say oops, reserve, put that in there. Cost index needs to be something more like 50. We're not using an operational flight plan, so we're just making these numbers up as we go. Cruise altitude, we'll go to, now let's have a look, 20,000 feet. We could probably go a bit higher, couldn't we? 25,000. Yeah, that'd be fine. So if we go to 25, we're going west, so it should be even. So we'll go for, could we actually get up to 28,000 feet? Is that, okay, we'll do it. We'll go to 28,000. So we'll put in flight level 280, which is 28,000 feet. Oh, interesting. That was a USB glitch. That's down to my motherboard, and I've never got to the bottom of what causes it, so we're going to ignore it. We've put in the altitude level, and we can then go and execute the changes so far. Go to N1 limit, we'll leave that as it is. Go to takeoff, we'll use 5 degrees flat for takeoff. We'll calculate the centre of gravity, which gives us a trim of 5.57, and we can go and pre-fill the rotate speeds now based on the runway and the weight of the aircraft. So 23.7, sorry, what were we saying? Sorry, 5.57 for the trim. So let's rotate the trim around to pre-configure it. So we're just moving this needle here to 5.57 or thereabouts. It's not an exact science, but it just makes sure the aircraft is in equilibrium as it accelerates down the runway. That's probably enough. Departure. We are leaving on runway 26. We are going to use a standard instrument departure, the MOGT-1R standard instrument departure, and there it is there. And we can go to route, activate and execute, and we'll go and put the destination in as well, even though you wouldn't normally in the real world. So we are using the RNAV approach into Sion for runway 25. So RNAV for 25, we're not using a star. We'll execute that, and so then if we go and look in the legs page and go next, before we get into the RNAV bit, we want to put in OSDOV, O-S-D-O-V. So I've just inserted a couple of waypoints to make the flight plan look sensible, and SOPA. And then we'll close up the gap in the discontinuity, in the legs page, and execute the change. Let's go and have a quick look down to make sure there are no other discontinuities. No, there are not. So it's all looking good. Okay, so we've got the flight plan done. We'll now press Control and 1, which gives us the view of the master control panel. We're going to turn on the flight directors. And what runway will we be taking off? Runway 26. So we'll go and set this initial heading to 260. We're going to go and set the altitude. We're just going to climb straight out. I've already had a quick look. There are some restrictions, but they are all above restrictions on the climb out. So we can go straight for, this makes it very simple for us actually, we can go straight for our climb out of 28,000 feet, wasn't it? So we're just rolling the altitude knob round to get this to a target altitude of 28,000 feet. So as soon as we take off, we'll actually go for a level change. Because we've already configured most things, we should be able to pre-select lateral navigation, and we can. I'm not sure we can pre-select a level change. Oh, we can. That's interesting. Okay. Set the barometric pressure, so I'm going to press B to shortcut that. Obviously we could read that from an operational flight plan. Oh, we got Carib Aviator has come up in the live stream chat saying he's patiently waiting for the 800. Yeah, it's hopefully based on this one, because this is only £30 or £28 in the UK, so it shouldn't be too expensive hopefully when the 800 comes out. But to be honest, it's going to be identical, it's just a bit bigger. That's the only difference. So the 700 and the 600 are absolutely identical inside. You know, the loadout of the the components inside the cockpit obviously match the serial numbers of the aircraft, of the liveries, but you can configure all of that, so it's worth just saying about that. If we go into the menu page and PMDG setup and aircraft and equipment, there's 15 pages of options to reconfigure the exact make and model of all the bits of hardware around the cockpit, to load it out to match a particular carrier with all of the options they might have had from the factory. Anyway, we're not going to get into that at the moment. Overhead. So control 6, we're going to go and switch the seatbelt light on, if I can remember where it is. Here it is. Yaw dampers to on. Cabin pressure to cruise altitude, so this will automatically go and pressurize the cabin appropriately. Aft fuel pump number 1 to on. This is a fuel pump that is used for the APU. I believe it's like the lowest feed point in the fuel tanks. That's why they tend to use aft number 1. So we've gone and switched on the APU and hit start. This should start moving sometime soon. So if we just zoom in on this needle here and see if it starts moving. We've got low oil pressure, that's good. So this should start moving sometime soon as it switches on the auxiliary power unit, and there it goes. So this will lift up to 7 and drop back to about 4. As soon as it does so, the middle light will come up on the bus transfer, and we can transfer power generation from ground power over to the APU. We've got another comment in Colava Day. Is there a major difference then with the 800 and the 700, or is it similar? They're the same. They're just lengthened fuselages. All of them are just different size fuselages. They're all the same as each other. Obviously, you get different loadouts of the hardware in the cockpit, but you can control that in all of them. So you can copy whichever particular model you want. So, for example, if I wanted the head-up display, I could just go and flick a switch in the flight management computer, in the PMDG options, and suddenly I've got the head-up display, for example. But it's telling that the 600 and the 700 have got the exact same version number on the binaries. Okay, so the light has come on for the bus transfer, so we're going to transfer over now to the auxiliary power unit. So we've taken power away from the ground power now, so we can go back down to the FS Actions menu, ground services, and we can release ground power now. So they're disconnecting ground power. We can also remove chocks while we're here. Let's just double check that we have got the parking brake. The parking brake isn't working for some reason. Let's have a look at this. I need to have a look at my controls. So removing the chocks is a trigger to close the doors and remove the stairs. So it's worth knowing about that. That's interesting that the parking brake isn't releasing. Anyway, we're not going to worry about it. It may be because we haven't got hydraulics yet. Where are we on the checklist? We've done the bus transfer, we've disconnected the ground power, we've removed the chocks. So fuel pumps to on. Let's get this show back on the road. This is the trouble with talking about things, you often get sidetracked. I think you need to press the brake down now for the parking brake. Let's try this. So if we go and actually depress the brakes. No, it's still not having any effect on it. I think it's to do with the hydraulics. Anyway, we're not going to get too caught up on that. I've lost where I am again. Fuel pumps are on. APU bleed. So we need to go and provide compressed air to the engines to start them. We also need to go and turn a light on to tell those outside. So we'll do any anti-collision lights on at this point, which will inform ground crew that we're about to start the engines. So we go for GRD mode, we use ignition on the right, and you will see the numbers coming up on N2 for the right engine. So this is the gas turbine. When it gets to about 25%, we can hit the starter lever for engine, or lift the starter lever for engine number 2, I should say. So there we go. And then you will see the fuel flow come in, the exhaust gas temperature will rise, and the N1 speed will increase, which is the turbofan. There's something funky going on with the parking brakes. We'll figure that out along the way. So just waiting for the engine to come up. When it comes up, the starter switch will go back to off all on its own, at which point we can do engine number 1. There we go. Okay, so N2 is coming up for engine number 1. When it gets to 25, we lift the starter lever for engine number 1. There we go. And wait for the engine to start up. So someone is saying the 800 is transatlantic, right? Well, they kind of all are. You can fly far enough with a stop, or depending on what route you're doing. But you can fly transatlantic in a 737. You just have to be careful about the route, that's all. You'll notice I haven't put the fuel pumps on for the centre tanks, so let's do that as well. That will make the warning go away down here. So engines are running. We can now do bus transfer over to the engines. So there we go. We can now turn the APU off. We can now disarm the APU bleed. So engines are running. We can turn on the hydraulic pumps. We can turn the packs on. And we can turn the taxi lights on. We're getting there slowly. Now, to be honest, in the real world, we would have done pushback, but you can see we're just on parking here, so we would have done pushback before we did starting the engines, but we don't need to. Flaps to takeoff position. So I'm just doing that now, and they need to go to 5 degrees to agree with the flight computer. So you can see a needle here which gives you the position. The flaps are travelling right now, but the lever is on 5 degrees already, which is good. Position lights go to strobe, so that's this switch over here. It's a bit fiddly to get to from the pilot's position, so that goes to strobe. Okay, so we're pretty much ready to roll. So let's see if this will come off the parking brake. Now we've got, did we do the hydraulics? Let's just go and double check. Yes, we did. I'm just having a quick look around to see what we've forgotten. It's not unlike me to forget something, especially when I go off script and start talking and answering questions. Okay. Yeah, so can we come off the parking brake, or is it still stuck on? That's interesting. So it won't let me engage the parking brake, which is interesting. Maybe, I'm not sure why. I'm not going to get into it. So we're going to go and line up to depart Innsbruck. So we're not using air traffic control today. Yeah, there's something weird going on here. I'm going to have to put this in its normal position. There was a warning there. Oh, that might be related to Y. So let's go and clear the errors on that. Good shout from the chat. Someone noticed that the gear lever was up. How strange. Although I was changing controller configuration shortly before I started the live stream, so it could be related to that. Let's get onto the runway and see if we can engage the parking brake now that the gear is in the correct position. That's probably the reason why. Okay, so we're stopped here. Can we do it now? No, we still can't. I think I need to remove the mapping, basically, within the controller configuration. Okay, let's go and set our climb out speed for the auto throttle. Just go and double check, 28,000 feet. Okay. Let's get on the road then, shall we? I'm almost certain that the issues with the parking brake is just me meddling with the controllers earlier.
V14. Positive reincline.
Gear up. And autopilot on. And level change mode. And speed on. And we can have a look from outside. We'll lift the flaps. Quite cool, isn't it, with the movement of the wingtips? Are there any Gulfstream jets? I don't think so, not yet. There's a Cessna CJ4, there's a Longitude, there's a CRJ, which is a Bombardier. I don't think I've seen a Gulfstream yet, but then I haven't got all of the aircraft. There are some other ones that I don't have, like the is it an Embraer, something or other. There's a Phenom as well. Okay, so let's go, and we're coming up to go for 250 knots. Let the aircraft sort it out on its own how to do that. Very pretty around here, isn't it? Okay, as you can see Innsbruck disappearing behind us. We need to go and turn off those taxi lights. I forgot all about that. So Zane Harvey is asking which business jet would I recommend. Well, Flight Simulator comes with the CJ4, the Cessna CJ4 out of the box, and there's a wonderful free add-on you can get from Working Title for it that improves the avionics on it, makes it really, really good, almost study level. So if you get the out of the box CJ4 and add on the Working Title mod for it, it's very good. I guess if you're playing on the Xbox, then you're going to be more limited because you can't add mods, so you'll be looking more at things like the longitude, which is very good in its own right. Okay, so we're climbing out 14,000 feet, and we can go to... Actually, no, we can increase speed, but we can't. Although we're over Switzerland, I'm not sure what the transition altitude is around here. I should have looked it up, really. Let's pretend it's 15,000 for today. So we're going to go over to standard on the barometric pressure. Over the US it's 18,000 feet, but it varies all over the place throughout Europe. And I haven't got a Navigraph subscription, so I can't see that data easily without looking it up. If Zane is just saying thank you about the reference to the jet. If you have got some money to spend, the Bombardier CRJ is very good. It's made by Aerosoft. Gives you lots more to do, lots more buttons and levers to switch and turn. It's very good fun. Okay, we're just coming up to Hoktai. We have to be above 13,000 feet. We're at 15 on our climb out, which is absolutely fine. You can see it's actually quite terrifying down there. Okay, so the aircraft is managing its climb out completely automatically, which is really lovely. In the 737 it does an awful lot for you. Should we go and have a see where we are on the route? So we go to the progress page and you can see the next waypoint highlighted and the time we are estimated to get there. If you go and look on the legs page, you should see an ETA. Or not. It's on the progress page. So LSGS, we should be at 16:39, and the time now is 16:10. It's about half an hour. Just coming up to 18,000 feet. Yeah, so someone's saying in the comment, Austria, the transition limit or transition altitude is 5,000 feet. So I thought it might be low. It's interesting, isn't it? Because in the US it's 18,000 everywhere, but in Europe it's different all over the place. Yeah, I haven't turned TCAS on because I haven't really got any real world traffic around me. We can turn it on, but we won't see anything. Well, we might see some AI aeroplanes, I guess. So we're going to turn it on to TARA. And I don't know if you were aware of this, but when you're looking on the screen in here, if you press the center of the range knob, it turns on the display of other aircraft and the range rings. So basically TCAS is traffic collision avoidance system. You have this dotted line around us. There's an aircraft over there, look, just passing out of range. If we zoom out, we're probably too late to see him actually. There he is, look. There's another one over here. So if they pass within this dotted circle around us, which is a couple of miles radius basically, it will set off an alarm and start telling us either to climb or descend to avoid the aircraft. So it's, it's an interesting thing to have on, but unless you're on VATSIM and actively avoiding people, then it's not of that much interest. No, people are asking about releasing the parking brake. It wouldn't switch on. That was the odd thing. So I imagine it's to do with the control configuration. It always is, because I'm using an Airbus quadrant with the 737, which causes havoc. You end up having to switch half the levers off, removing their control functions and just using the cockpit, because it's really not designed for it. That's at the root of all of the issues I see, is that I am using an Airbus quadrant with the 737. We're quite high now, aren't we? Those hills are a long way down now. Of course, when you're much closer to them, they look much more scary. You can see a lake coming in the distance. That would be Obersee Bodensee. So we're making a left turn now towards Liechtenstein, and we're going to be passing southwest down towards Sion. Someone's saying about the TCAS warning scaring the life out of them. Yeah, and it's always on approach, because you always get AI traffic near the airfield. The thing to do is, when you're on approach, is take it off of RA mode. Just put it on TA, which basically means you're transmitting your position to others, but you're not responding to their position. Because if you were flying with air traffic control, they would be arranging your separation anyway. And it's very rare that a big jet would fly into anywhere that isn't controlled airspace. So it's kind of, if you're flying without a real world controller, it's all a bit false and a bit made up, because obviously a real world controller wouldn't have allowed you to get that close in the first place. They would have been asking you, for speed changes and altitude changes on the way in. Okay, how are we doing? So cruising along, 320 knots indicated. Coming up towards our top of climb. If we zoom out on the map screen, we can see we're going to start descending almost as soon as we got to the top of climb, which is fun. In fact, we could just shorten this up and go for 25,000, couldn't we? So let's go for altitude hold at 25,000. This would be interesting, actually, to see if it loses that 300 feet for us. Will it do it? Yes, it will. It's adjusting itself without me having to trim it. Famous last words. No, it's gone for altitude hold at the exact point I pressed it, I think. Or maybe it's playing games with the speed. Okay, let's go for vertical speed and tell it to lose the speed at 250 feet a minute until it gets down to the target. We'll leave that to get on with it, so you can see there. Okay, I'm just meddling with the controls, to be honest. Scenery looks amazing. I never remember to take any screenshots. I'm just going to take one. Okay, let's have a look. Oh, we've got a master caution light. Why have we got a master caution? I'm just looking around inside the cockpit. Why would that have lit up? That's an interesting one. Can't see any warnings anywhere. we are holding 25,000 feet now, which is good. And we can see the destination coming. We're actually quite close to it, so we're going to start dropping. So let's go and have a look and see if we've got any altitude restrictions on the approach. Above 17,000 at GS 608. So we can see GS 608 is coming up here. So we'll go for 17,500 by the time we get there. And let's do this on vertical speed mode, so then we can play games with watching the target. Let's let it sort itself out. Here comes the target for, or the estimated point at which we will get to that height. So we need to keep this green line before GS 608. So yeah, there we go, coming down at 1,000 feet a minute gets us there just in time. If we have a look on the map, what's the next target? So when we get past 608, we've only got 10 miles to go to drop to 13,000 feet effectively. It's quite a steep drop all of a sudden, isn't it? Falling into the valley basically. So let's keep an eye on these hills. So following the standard approach route into Sion, which will help us steer through the valley. It's an RNAV approach. RNAV just means area navigation. So it literally just means we're still following waypoints on a GPS driven flight computer. So it really does mean it's no big deal. And I'll be going manual on landing anyway, because I always do. It's good visibility today. There's no point to be doing approach mode and all the rest of it. How are we looking? Still on target to get to, although it's wavering around a fair amount, isn't it? Should we try and get there a bit more expeditiously? 1,500 feet a minute. And then it gives us time to decelerate as well, I should say. You can see the throttle's waving around, doing its job. That's a hell of a valley down there. I've flown down that with prop planes before, and it's always spectacular. If you wanted to see where that is in the world, we can see it here. It's by Spiringen. It's an absolutely stunning valley to fly along. Emile has appeared. Bonjour. Bonjour, Emile. Okay, so we're coming down. We're looking for 17,500 feet at GS 608, and then we are going to drop quickly after that. So we may be using air brakes and hanging things out to descend quickly. We'll see how we go. Have I attempted a flight to Paro? Yes, lots of times. It's great fun. But this plane would make it easy. So this is the 737-600 obviously, and I've been playing with it this morning. You can fly it on empty on the the limit of the flaps, you can basically come in at 100 knots quite safely. It's quite funny. So your takeoff roll, oh sorry, your landing roll is actually, you know, incredibly short. So let's pull the zoom in on this so we can see GS608 is coming. So we're just following the standard approach route basically, step by step. So 607 is the one we've highlighted here. So we need to drop down to 13,000 feet for 607. Between 608 and 607. So let's stop the centering on the map. Let's get rid of the search out of the way as well. We don't really need the elevation plot either. So we're the yellow aeroplane. This is Little Nav Map, by the way, if nobody's seen it before. It's a very good navigation program. Okay, we're getting there. I think my favourite airports to fly into in Flight Simulator are the ones with offset glide slopes. They are they're great fun, or localised, I should say, offset ILS. Let's say it that way. There's a couple up in Canada, on the west coast of Canada, that have got seriously offset. I think one of them is Wrangell. There's one in Italy as well that's got a massively offset ILS. Okay, so we're levelling up because we are approaching our target altitude, so the klaxon you heard was us getting within 900 feet of it. Okay, I am going to let us coast back to 250 knots now. The idea of doing that is so when we pass through 10,000 feet we don't have a struggle to slow down. So we'll already be at the correct speed and we don't accelerate as we descend, therefore we're at the right speed as we pass through 10,000 feet. If you go the other way, yeah, there's some great approaches around the world. I think everybody has their own favourites, don't they? So what's this little airfield down in the valley down here that we're just about to pass over? It's Munster Airport. It's probably Munster, but Munster. So we're basically following this valley around and then turning right into the next valley. So how are we doing? There's 608. If we put the legs page on, we can see the restrictions, which is quite cool. So at 608 it actually wants us at 17,000. So we can start descending already when we get to the previous. Shall we, while we're doing nothing, let's move the heading round to go the same direction we're going. We can actually go and configure ILS way before we get there. I don't think we're going to use ILS, but 11070 degrees. So we are going to move the course round to 244 degrees on both sides. We're just coming up to there, so we're going to go for the 17,000 now and do a flight level change to get there, which is quicker than messing around with vertical speed. And we wanted, what was it, 11070. So we go and look at the nav radios. 11070, make that active. 11070, make that active. So we're ready to go on landing. And just to avoid what we were on about with hitting traffic, we're going to turn the TCAS to ignore other aircraft, and we're going to turn off the display here so we can concentrate on what we can see. We're still getting a caution. Why are we getting a caution? Can't see anything. Just looking around to see if there's anything obvious. Oh, we might have failure, I guess. Approach ref. It's because we've not configured the full flight plan. So we can clear that warning. Unable, yeah. So it's just because we didn't fill a full flight plan in. That's why we're getting the warnings. So 13,000, wasn't it? We have to drop down to. Level change. And let's help the aircraft do it. So I've thrown the spoilers out. Let's just check that. Yeah, 13,000 feet. So coming in. We're wanting to get to 13,000 pretty quickly. So it is a struggle. Look, we're not going to do it easily. Although it's above, so it really doesn't matter if we get there this expeditiously or not. What we really need to look at is GS 605, which is above 6.5, so we could go for 7,000. And we need to be at 7,000 by here, or above, again. So then if we look even further down the road towards, we want 1,600 feet at 617, which is way down here. So if we look for 1,600, let's cut speed right back now. Going to get a lovely view along the valley. And it's raining here and there, which is quite cool. So we're basically using the spoilers to help us descend at speed, and we're also scraping some speed off on the way. And as we slow down, we're going to start dropping the flaps, which will again give us even more drag. Let's pull this in further. Go slow enough to do that, so let's graze some more speed off. We're playing games here, we're trying to decelerate before the flaps get there, which is quite fun. See, we've picked up glide slope already, which is interesting. I guess the runway's down there somewhere. Okay, let's come off those spoilers. Let's increase the range on this to see. Can we see the green line? Yeah, the green line, we're coming down at about the right rate actually. So let's slow down a bit more so we can go for the next stage of flaps. So you can see it's having to lift the nose to decelerate. It's not a problem, we can chuck the spoilers out again. Yeah, it doesn't like us going this fast, so I'm going to throw the spoilers out and go for 150. But our main aim here is to decelerate. So we're using the flaps as our primary means of doing that, and it's complaining that we haven't got the gear down, so we'll go do that. And that will shut up the warning that we're hearing. There we go, the warning has gone away. On the speed. Let's go for full flaps. Gear is down, so landing lights on. There's rain showers in the valley by the look of it. We're a little bit above the glide slope at the moment. We're not going to worry too much. I'm guessing that's the airfield out there. It's quite busy on the EFIS display, isn't it? We can zoom in obviously and make more sense of it as we get closer. And we can get the heading to match the course, which will help with making sense of which way the runway actually is. So it's a good point actually. Is this offset? It's offset a little bit, isn't it? So the actual runway is 250 degrees. So let's go and put the heading on 250. Doing all of this, never looking outside. It's typical, isn't it? Okay, so we don't have to be coming down so steeply. Let's go to vertical speed mode and slacken this off. Very pretty in the valley, isn't it? Sit up, you can't quite see it. If we go to outside, there's the runway. So the offset ILS is because this hill is in the way, basically. I mean, we could fly manually and just skim the hill on the way in and straighten our approach up more quickly than the official route. So we're just edging back towards the official glide slope. And we can just chase it by modifying our feet per second descent rate. Feet per minute, sorry, I mean. Okay, should we go manual from here, just to make it a bit more fun? So that's just warning about the autopilot being switched off. Let's turn the auto throttle off as well.
Terrain.
Yes, I know. Let's just center the view up, we've got the terrain view now showing up. So I have control, and I'm going to do what I said and bring this in closer to the hill to get an earlier turn towards the runway. So we're keeping an eye, half an eye, on the glide slope, but not so much the localizer, because we're going to be way off.
Terrain, pull up. Terrain, pull up. Terrain, pull up.
The terrain's great, isn't it?
Terrain, pull up.
And this is why it's an offset ILS.
Terrain, pull up. Terrain,
Let's pull this in.
Terrain, pull up. Terrain, pull up. Terrain, pull up. Terrain, pull up. Terrain, pull up.
If you're wondering why it's having a fit, if we look out the window, that's why it's having a fit.
Pull up. Terrain, pull up. Terrain, pull up.
So something we haven't done is calibrate the altimeter, which I've just done.
Terrain, pull up. Terrain, pull up. Terrain,
I'm going to turn
up.
off the terrain warnings, because that's
pull up.
kind of frustrating.
Terrain, pull
Well, it doesn't
up.
appear I can. Not easily
Terrain,
anyway.
Terrain, pull up.
It's finally got the idea of what we're doing, and is no longer warning us that the ground is coming, which is good.
Terrain, pull up.
It's great, isn't it? And we're down. And reverse. Okay. And gently apply the wheel brakes, and we should make the next turn, to be honest. So we only needed half that runway, even though Sion is regarded as being quite short. So it just shows just how good this 737-600 is at short field. Okay, we came in very low and shallow, but it just shows you what it can do. Okay, let's turn right here. I don't fancy our chances with the wing clipping the building if we turn left. And to be honest, they don't probably get many 737s in here. This is cheating, I know, but we've got nobody to wave us in. Parking brakes on. Obviously at this point we would go and turn on the APU and run through, crossing back over to it, and the whole story. Turn the landing lights off, turning the strobe lights, or turning them back to steady, I should say. But yeah, it was quite uneventful really, wasn't it? So that's the 737-600. It's pretty cool. So as soon as you got the APU up and running, of course, which we will get, the middle light will come on and we can transfer across to it. I mean, we could go straight for the ground power unit, ask the ground crew to connect it and avoid the APU altogether. But we're just waiting for the APU to drop back down. When it does so, the middle light comes on, we transfer back to it, then we can cut the engines. And then it's just a case of switching everything off. So the hydraulics can come off already. Okay, there it goes. So we are now using the APU for electrical power, so we can shut off the engines. And from that point onwards, it's just a case of reversing everything we did earlier. So we can go and turn the probe heats back off, we can go and turn off the windscreen heaters, we can go up above and turn off the inertial navigation system. We can, if we can get to the knob for this, we can turn this back to, there we go. And yeah, it's just a case of, you know, reversing what we did. There's nothing complicated about any of this really. So yaw damper goes to off, packs go to off, and we can remove the seatbelt sign, and then you hear bedlam behind us as all the passengers scramble to be the first out, even though they're all going to have to go and wait for their bags anyway. So I've never quite understood that one. Anti-collision lights off, position lights off. And yeah, we're pretty much there, aren't we? We've done that. We can turn off everything except that aft fuel pump, which is providing that. We could go back to ground power now if we wanted to. So we could go into the menu screen and FS Actions, Ground Services, and we could apply some chocks, please, and then we could request the ground power. I wonder if putting the chocks in also summons the stairs. No, it doesn't. That's an interesting one. Okay, so it's connecting ground power. So then back overhead we can go to ground power now, which means we can then turn off the APU if we can get the mouse in the right place on it, which means then we can turn off the fuel flow for the APU. And I think, is there anything we've forgotten here? APU's off. I mean, there's a lot of things here that are already on in the cold and dark state that you wouldn't necessarily turn off. But I think that's about it. Oh, we've got the emergency lights, we could turn those back to off. And we've got the batteries, we could go and turn that back to off. And there we go. Aircraft is ready for somebody else to use it. Obviously, if we do turn off the ground power now, it would just go completely cold and dark. Like so. And it takes a moment for the power to vanish from some of the systems. Some of them don't die immediately. You can see them dying one by one around the aircraft and going dark, which is quite cool. Some of them appear to still work, which is interesting. Yeah, I'm not quite sure what went wrong with the parking brake. I'll have to have a look at the control configuration for that. Okay, that's enough for today. I'm going to switch the recording off there, or switch the live stream off, I should say. Hopefully you enjoyed that. So this was the 737-600, which came out yesterday from PMDG, and we just did a short flight from Innsbruck down to Sion. It's good fun to fly, and you could see actually, even though this is regarded as quite a difficult airfield, we had lots and lots of runway to play with. You know, we only used half the runway. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. See you all soon.